Hey folks, welcome to another Billy Maine Storytime. I'm Mike. I'm a writer for Billy Maine. I used to be the webmaster. We have a much smarter female who does that. I primarily write and do the story times. Today's a little bit different. It's harder than I thought it would be. I'm going to try to do as much as I can about everything today. So, last Wednesday, the Sea Dogs, the independent baseball team affiliated with the Boston Red Sox out of Portland, had a special ASL night. The ASL night was to commemorate the fact that the mass shooting loose disproportionately affected people who are deaf. Of the 31 victims of the mass shooting, 9 were deaf, including 5 who died, one of which was Joshua Sees. Mr. Sees was a interpreter for Pine Creek Society and was also an interpreter for the governor during the governor's COVID press conferences. He was shot and killed, as were 4 other people in the community. Another 4 people were wounded. On Wednesday, about a week ago, they actually had brand new Sea Dogs jerseys that had the Sea Dogs logo spelled out in sign language. So, and those shirts are available on the Sea Dogs website. If you go to the website and search for ASL, you'll find them. They're pricey, but they do work. What they did also is that Mr. Steve ran a camp at Pine Tree Camp for deaf individuals that was a week long. This is different than the regular scheduled camps that Pine Tree Camp does itself. It was in addition to this. It's been going on for a number of years. It will be continuing to go on. In fact, they did an interview with the camp director, John Woodburn, who happens to be a good friend of mine. And today was actually my 40th anniversary of starting camp, so I guess it's kind of weird. My first time I went to camp was June 26th of 1984, so yeah, I did the research. It's kind of crazy. But it was a year before Don did. And Don's currently the director, but I'm not even near the oldest camper, so we won't go there. But the t-shirts are really cool. I do have one, but I don't have it nearby. I can send a picture of it and post it, and I won't do so. And I can also link to a story that the Press Herald did. I don't want to reread that story because that's violating their, most of their intellectual property, even if I put my own words to it. And I don't really want to read stuff about mass shooting, and I hear about it all the time, and I live it, and I mean, I've got to talk about it because it's something that happens here, and it happens, and it's something that needs to be talked about. But it's frustrating, it's hard, and it's not always easy. I'll be honest. Continue it because it's been a long week with everything. Okay, so I want to update you with the most updated information on the J. Rottenberg Center. Uh, uh, and what I have may not be enough, so hold on, let's see what I find. Give me 1 second, I do apologize. Okay. So apparently, the most recent information I've received is that the FDA has the authority to ban the use of the shock devices being used at the Judge Rottenberg Center because of a law that was passed in Congress giving it explicit right to do so. It is set to ban the device on a agricultural rider to a FDA subcommittee. Markup needs to be passed on July 10th. In order for that markup to be passed, there needs to be the removal of a very specific amendment that was placed. And I talked about the amendment before. It's the same amendment. It was not removed prior to the markup. When they're trying to remove it after the markup, or before the vote on July 10th. So it's critical that if you're in Maine and you know Shelley Fingley, you can get a hold of Shelley Fingley and leave a message with her. Her number is 202-225-6416. You can ask to speak about the Judge Rottenberg Center. You can leave messages for the Autistic Advocacy Center, or Google Autistic Advocacy, or Google Autistic Self-Advocacy Center. They have plenty of great resources for self-advocates and those who want to help self-advocates and support self-advocates. Advocate for this. Apparently 50 people are still receiving shocks. They can be very, very dangerous. They're grounded in ABA theory, which goes back about 6 decades and has long since been shunned by the large majority of people that practice ABA. Excuse me, my mouth is extremely dry. So the majority of people, the vast majority, 99.99% of people do not have any support for this. And the money they receive, Judge Rottenberg Center receives millions of dollars just from the state of New York in doing this. They do it for countless other states too. There are approximately 50 individuals that are receiving this information or receiving this treatment. And it's been going on for over close to 40 years. My first disability conference ever was based on Judge Rottenberg Center, and that was 29 years ago. So that's kind of insane when you think about it, that something has still been that is so completely ridiculously, absurdly messed up is still being practiced. It's had some serious cutbacks. They can't do it to anybody new. They can't do it to any more current patients, but they can still do it to past patients. And there's still about 50 patients who are still receiving treatment and receiving lots of money from various states to continue that treatment. So, and it's done by court order. They have to be done by court order. It's the only way they would get paid for. And that goes back to the way in which these behavioral plans were made back in the 80s and 90s. It's kind of old and barbaric and ridiculous and absurd in so many ways. And to continue that, there's been, obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but there's been a real major issue with mental health care and treatment and trying to get any sort of access to mental health care in Maine. It's really difficult to the point where, as someone who has really excellent advocacy skills, I had a real hard time finding a new therapist 2 years ago. Luckily, I found a very great one, but I was reading a blog on Disability Rights Maine about how representing a woman who was group paper, which is a term used to commit somebody against their will to a psychiatric, under a psychiatric hold because they're going to hurt themselves. To an emergency room and was treated to a psychiatric bed. She remained in the emergency department for 65 days until eventually being transferred to a psychiatric unit. 2 days after Disability Rights Maine filed a petition with a will written habeas corpus in Superior Court against the emergency department. After receiving treatment, she was discharged back to her apartment. The petition acknowledged the standard for receipt involuntary psychiatric hospitalization, violated her due process rights were violated due to prolonged wait for her transfer from the emergency department to a psychiatric facility. Some argue that this case highlights the need for more psychiatric rights in Maine to prevent such lengthy stays in emergency departments due to the long wait lists in psychiatric hospitals. However, a closer examination reveals a different reality. Although technically moot, the Superior Court held a hearing on her petition even after her discharge. The court, in its opinion, found that her due process rights were indeed violated, and she had the right to a court address to report of legal representation. The petition is tagged as AF versus Maine General Medical Center. The court noted that one reason for her extended stay in the emergency department was repeatedly rejected by numerous psychiatric hospitals, citing reasons such as her acuity level being too high or not lifting the pain and relief. The selection process led her to being stuck in the emergency department, as these hospitals could refuse admission without any wait list. In his decision, the Superior Court observed, over the course of 65 days, plaintiff AF was rejected by the following hospitals: Riverview Psychiatric Center, Dorothea Psychiatric Center, Spring Harbor Hospital, Northern Lights Academia Hospital, Southern Maine Medical Center, St. Mary's Regional Medical Center, Bay Coast Hospital, Scott Bay Hospital, Maine Medical Center, and Maine General Medical Center. They all claimed that she was not fit for the hospital as her acuity level was too high, otherwise did not fit their milieu. And these rejected repeatedly referred other patients who also be awaiting admissions from NDMC's ED were admitted into psychiatric hospitals. The writing director for the emergency director at emergency department at NDMC testified there is essentially no waiting list for these patients as the term is correctly understood. Instead, prospective hospitals are permitted to decide whether the patient is a good fit for their facility. If not, the patient in the ED, whether the patient is being detained, have no option but to accept the decision and to wait. And wait they did. Consequently, AF found herself confined to the emergency department until one of these hospitals decided to change part. However, despite more than 2 months passing, Clinton materialized until after she filed her petition to the Superior Court. Hence, increasing the number of beds would not ease AF's situation in the emergency department, would merely increase the count of beds in town and accessible to her. The court noted, as her attorney essentially puts it, the beds were just not available. The beds were just not available to her. How frequently does this scenario unfold where individuals went in the emergency department not depending on whether due to reasons that could persist indefinitely due to the psychiatric hospitals refusing to admit? Answering these questions is challenging. The Maine Department of Health and Human Services lacks centralized data on what psychiatric hospitals decline to admit who pick the patients from emergency departments based on reasons such as security level and good milieu. Consequently, it's difficult to ascertain whether at a statewide level individuals remain stuck in the emergency department primarily due to bad shortages or other reasons. Furthermore, there's no oversight to evaluate acceptability for hospital determinations to refuse such a patient. For instance, many hospitals say the concept of not being a good fit for milieu justification for refusing AF. The court cited testimony of the ER nursing director described the conditions in which AF was detained in the ER in the emergency department over 2 months followed. The nursing director described the conditions as particularly worse than jail in most cases. There's no outdoor time, no windows, just 4 white walls, and urgent consideration for the environment was akin to being in jail. There appears to be insufficient oversight regarding psychiatric hospitals. The refusal to admit a full-time patient treated with milieu or acuity assessment, particularly with patients subjected to conditions akin to jail with minimal treatment or waiting in the emergency department. Moreover, reasons speculate that individuals' acuity level could intensify the longer they're exposed to such an environment, potentially reduce the appeals to psychiatric hospitals that react based on escalating acuity levels, which makes things go from bad to worse. Despite that DA suggests contracting with these hospitals to accept group patient, the court found that DA suggests essentially proprietary to these hospitals refusing to admit patients like AF. The court proceeded. The reality is that NDMCO, like all other hospitals, are stuck with determination about acuity and milieu GMC. The court argues agrees that GMC court should not involve itself in making such clinical tests, particularly when GHA test is apparently marking away its own right to object to these clinical decisions, presumably supplying these credible hospitals such as MGMC willing to accept patients such as AF, emphasis added. The court clearly recognized that symptoms flaw could have resulted in AF being detained indefinitely in the ED and psychiatric hospitals by different other patients, the court emphasized. But the judge's intervention disability rights Maine's willingness to file this case, AF could easily become another patient who could have been languishing MGMC's ED for 6 months. The court, citing a recent Maine Supreme Court judicial court decision, further noted that the problem is the system is not something that can be fixed judicially, but should be addressed by the executive or legislative branch standing. There's no indication that the health and law court ever expected that the restart process could go on indefinitely, and it stated that patients with AF circumstances continue to be protected by due process while waiting. A fair hearing in this case would be that the law court went as far as to give the court with the record before it, but expected that and hoped, along with the hospitals and Maine citizens who reside in extended periods in emergency departments, that the executive and legislative branches of Maine were governing what has now become a chronic problem. The case of AF exemplifies challenges faced by individuals waiting transfer from emergency departments to psychiatric beds. The Superior Court observation of the extended emergency department stay marked by repeated reductions from psychiatric hospitals underscores some systemic issues. The lack of oversight exacerbate the situation of those who drive data to assist the frequency of such refusal or the appropriateness of such hospital decisions. It really does seem like kind of a hell in a way. The AF basically was stuck in an emergency department because of this. And basically, this law continues to basically state that the last statement was that if AF ended up in the emergency department of Maine General Disability Rights Maine was to be notified immediately within the next 5 years. So that's about the only thing good about that. But it's kind of scary that's happening in Maine, to say the least. There's so much stuff that I can go over, and it's weird because I start going through stuff thinking that I don't have enough to go on, and then I start with these story times. I get way behind my timing, and so now I've been doing this for half an hour now. I don't even have half the stuff I wish I go through. Which is good, but it's not because it's frustrating. Hold on if you don't mind. three new COVID strains are now I'm just not talking about three new COVID strains and the okay, so the flirt strains, FLIRT, are some variants of Omicron now account for more than 60% of cases in the U.S., up from less than 5% in March. One of them, KP.3, accounted for 33.1% of COVID infections by the end of the first week of June. KP2 made up for 28.9%, 20.8, and KP 1.1 accounted for 9% of cases. I mean, that was according to Yale Medicine. And that was a pretty good snippet. Some experts have suggested that new variants have caused some surge in COVID cases, and that's being seen in the UK, in Taiwan, and in other parts of the world. Hasn't hit America yet, but and in Canada, there have been huge COVID surges in the UK and in Taiwan, and that usually means that it's not much further until it hits America, give it about a month or less. In fact, one of my friends recently got COVID and it was in the UK right prior to going to receiving COVID, so. Honestly, I have no idea what their goal was, but I know it. And I do apologize, but I do know that there's been tremendous stuff in terms of COVID issues with other countries. So the CDC also reports that COVID bottle activity wastewater has been dropping since January. Is currently minimal, but they're also not testing it like they were 4 years ago. So it's testing oranges to apples. It's not the same thing. We don't have the same ways of creating it like we did before. Let's not kid ourselves. Nobody's masking. I'm masking a lot more than I did even 3 years ago. But I mean, it's just frustrating if you have a severe disability and you're trying to get through this. Viruses mutate all the time, so I'm not surprised to see new coronavirus variant is no deal. My medicine infectious disease specialist Scott Roberts, MD. If anything, the new mutations are confirmation of SARS-CoV-2 virus remains a bit of a wild card, which always supposed to predict what will happen next. I'm guessing we'll continue to mutate. Perhaps the biggest question Dr. Roberts says whether the newly mutated virus will continue to evolve over the winter with infection hospitals, immunizations usually rise, whether fourth strains will be included as component of the fall COVID vaccine. Will Dr. Roberts answer 3 questions about what's the support variants? One, where does the fourth strains come from? Nobody knows exactly where the fourth variant source emerged. They were first detected in the U.S. by the CDC, which tests to detect species of SARS-CoV-2 secondary community. Europeans don't have symptoms that can be used as an early warning that variant infection levels have been decreasing in the community. Fourth strains have been identified in other countries, including Canada and the United Kingdom. To better understand how fourth strains emerge might help to see how the SARS-CoV-2 virus changed over time with components as mutations emerged in its genetic code. Omicron was a variant of SARS-CoV-2 that took a hold in the U.S. in 2021 and began to spawn some variants. One of those JN1, which was identified in September 2023 and spread throughout the country during the winter months, leading to a spike in COVID hospitalization. JN also has descendants. The fourth variant is spin-offs of one called JN 1.11.1. What we know and do not know about what do we know and not know about the fourth variants? We know that the fourth variants have two mutations to the spike proteins. The spike fusion to the surface of the virus that works in the JN1 strain. Some say these mutations can make it easier for the virus to evade people's immunity from the vaccine or previous bouts of COVID. But where variants are otherwise genetically similar to J1 can be reassuring. Dr. Roberts says when J1 occurred during the winter months, people got to enjoy the virus is more likely to spread, since it's reminded of those caused by variants in the early years of the pandemic. There's no news about whether COVID illness would be more severe with the COVID with the fourth variant, or how symptoms might change, because everyone is different. Of course, the symptoms and severity of the COVID disease usually depend less on which variant they are infected with, and more on their immunity and overall health, as CDC says. 3. How can people protect themselves against the fourth strain? Vaccination is key strategy, says Dr. Roberts. Everyone is eligible for COVID vaccination to make sure that deep with the way COVID vaccines COVID may not prevent, well, vaccination may not prevent infection, may significantly lower a person's risk of significant severe illness, hospitalization, and death from COVID. We know that the updated monovalent vaccine, which was designed for the XBB 1.5 variant, works against JN1, and so we suspect it has some activity against the first mutations as well, Dr. Roberts says. I would especially recommend anyone qualifies for the vaccine because of advanced age, they haven't to get it if they haven't already. Dr. Roberts says for this is the biggest risk factor for a bad outcome of COVID is advanced age. Anyone over 65 is eligible for the first updated vaccine offered in the fall of 2023 and a second shot 4 months later. He also said COVID tests should be able to detect fourth strains and antiviral treatment to regain effectiveness against them. Vaccinated is the primary treatment against for most people with COVID acts on the spike positive virus. So it's relatively variant proof should really work without yourself lengths of time. And the other reason that I did want to mention is there was a study that showed that there was, I know that a lot of people have been saying that cannabis can prevent COVID from being so severe. That's actually kind of been disproven, but it's said that any smoking can be detrimental to one's health, but smoking could lessen one's immune system capacity. It may not. So, if you use cannabis, your immune system may not act so hard against it. I'm not sure, but that was what I got from the reading the abstract from the article. I didn't read the actual article. I'll have much more info on the next Storytime. That could be Friday. I'm kind of waiting on that. I got nothing more than enough content, but right now it's been a really long week, and it's extremely hot, much hotter than I thought it would be if that been on me, so it might have been hard to understand me today, and I do apologize. It's Mike, and I'm going to call it a day for Maine and for Storytime. Hope you had a great one, and enjoy yourself, and we'll hopefully be back soon, and be well. Bye.